Francesca, Mary, Margaret, thank you so much for joining me in the lounge room all the way from Kansas City, Missouri.
Well, thank you for having us, Tom.
Yeah,
We're excited to be here.
I can't thank you enough for coming on. FYI, your studio looks beautiful. I'm sure when all here, it's be better than mine. That's really cool. I love it. And Kansas City, Missouri, I'm extremely jealous of you because I've got a very, very large Spencer family over there. And I've also got three, I was about to say four, but that's not true. I've got three siblings who live and work in Kansas City, Missouri.
No way.
Yeah,
wow.
there you go.
Do they go to St. Vincent's? Is that where they go? Okay.
Yeah.
Small world.
So they go to St. Vincent's. Maggie, John, Jane. I've just used names, so they're out there for the world to see. But no, I've spent quite a bit of time over there, and it is a home away from home. So I love Kansas City, Missouri. And is that where you live? Do you live in Kansas City?
I live in St. Louis, Missouri, which is 4 hours away, 4 hours east. And I'm a nanny out there. But Mary Margaret lives here.
Yeah, I just came back from Florida. I got married in December, and we moved down to Florida for my husband's job, and then his job brought us back to Kansas City to be with family. So we're happy to be back. Great.
Oh, good. Well, this is very exciting. Let's get down to business. So I understand that you two are heavily involved in a group. It's a Facebook predominantly and Instagram called Captivating Womanhood, which is a page effectively dedicated to preserving and protecting and empowering for, maybe that's not the right word, but it's a good word, empowering the dignity of women. So we'll talk lots about that. But if we can start by just talking about you two. So one of the themes that I discuss with guests on my show is their individual, in this case, dual Catholic journeys. So it's no secret that you two, or it won't be a secret that you two are sisters. So if you can tell me about what it was like growing up in Missouri as a Catholic, and then we'll just go for it from there.
Yeah. So we are from a family of 12. I'm number 7 and you're number 9, right?
Okay.
9. And we actually grew up all over the United States. We're originally from Dallas, Texas.
Have to make them with that.
So we have to say that we love Texas, and then we moved from Texas in like 2006. Our dad worked from home, and we homeschooled, so we could kind of go wherever
the wind blew.
So we moved to New York for 3 years, and kind of just, I don't know why we moved.
It was just a brief adventure there.
But
we had a good time, but
our mom just liked to move, and so we're like, okay, New York, I guess. And my dad wanted the change of weather, and we lived there for a few years, and just, I don't know, homeschooled, did the homeschool life. I don't know, are you homeschooled?
No. So that would be something interesting to talk about. So why were you homeschooled?
I think that there were a lot of reasons. Our dad always made the mention that one of the most important things, or one of the most main reasons why we homeschooled, was because no matter how good a school can be, it also depends on who the other students are, and who you're around. And I mean, I guess when you're around all your siblings, you're only going to pick up what you've been taught from your parents and from around your siblings, as well as, I think just, not having too much tension with schools, and having the flexibility of, teaching us what they knew was important to them and what they wanted their children to grow up to be.
Yeah.
And so I think those were kind of the two main reasons. We know we can give you exactly what we think is really important, as well as, we can't stop your interaction with other, kids at school during recess. What's going to, what other kids are there, And I think a lot of people think, oh, you're homeschooled, so you're super sheltered. Mm-hmm. The funny thing is, most people don't think we're homeschooled because we're really not sheltered. And I think also, I think that's part of a stigma that can be around homeschooling is, oh, you're homeschooled, so you're sheltered. But
you don't talk.
Yeah, you're quiet and you standoffish. You don't really know anything but 2 + 2. But it was, our dad made a point to really make any opportunity at home be a learning experience, and anything that we did a learning experience. It wasn't just the homework that we did that taught us. In fact, I'd say that we learned more from our dad having us, come sit in the living room when he had guests over, or if we had, good priests, to listen to the conversations. And I could count on my hands though how many times Mormons come knocking on the door, and he'd welcome them in and be like, yes, let's pull out our Bibles and let's compare
Kids
Bibles
come in the room.
And he'd call us all in, and listening to those conversations and things like that. And I think that was a real benefit of being homeschooled, because if we weren't homeschooled, we wouldn't have had all of those life lessons like that.
Yeah.
So
that's a really interesting point you bring up, because it's a theme I've been discussing a bit recently in terms of Catholic education. If you haven't seen it, that's the most recent episode of my show that I've put out, where a few of us sit down and we discuss Catholic education. But it's something that is becoming more and more relevant every second. It's been relevant for ages, believe it or not.
But like in the Catholic schools nowadays, it's all dying. No one's talking. I mean, like, yes, in like the SSPX schools, and they're still being taught the right stuff, but in regular Catholic schools, they're not being taught anything about faith.
Huge.
Nothing.
And we're getting to the stage where even the average Joe on the street who may not have a religious conviction is standing back and going, there is some really weird, wacky stuff being taught in schools that I would not see it as the responsibility of a school to teach. And it's no secret what those words, those ideas are: gender identity, all these things that you go, I send my kid to an institution so he can learn maths, science, literature, mastery of the English language, and everything else, hands off, not your job. Whereas these days, it's the education seems to be across the board poorer and poorer, and the ideological infusion seems to be greater and greater. So I think to be fair and to support people who have made the decision to pull out of mainstream educational institutions, it's not a surprise at all. You may be ahead of the game, because it's no big deal to identify that there are some fundamental issues with the direction education's going in. But just to share a little bit of my story with you. So there was a traditional, a society-based primary school that I attended, which was, great. But at the time there was no corresponding high school. So my parents sent me to it was a non-denominational grammar school. I think private schools over in the United States. I'm not sure what the equivalent is, but loved it. Great school. But I had I think a very, very strong Catholic education there, because it was ironically what I received from the family unit that I took there. And that's exactly what you've just said, because you received your Catholic education at home, and it was capitalizing on the opportunities you received there that strengthened you in your faith. And I think that's definitely something that's common to all the people that I've discussed this issue with. It's the family unit, it's the strength of the faith at home and the formation you received there. So could you sort of take this a little bit further and flesh out what was it like at home? So were you country based or sort of rural? Where was home?
Again, all over the place. We only got land when we lived in New York. So I was 9 when we moved. So below that time, we lived in a subdivision, but once we moved to New York, we had horses, and it was really lovely. And
we lived in the country.
And we actually lived near, I'm sure if you know Johnny Hardess, his wife, we lived in the same...
up in Syracuse.
Syracuse.
Okay.
There's an SSPX school as well. It's a boarding school.
Yeah, big SSPX school.
But we did the country and the city.
We've done everything.
So. You've done it all. You name it, you've been there.
But yeah, I think both were. I don't think it really changed. I don't think it changed the homeschooling perspective that much. I think aside from being in New York, because the homeschooling laws were rather strict in New York and we weren't necessarily abiding by them, that it was nice to live in the country then because of, it just not being right there in front for their neighbors to report or whatnot for, your children are playing outside.
That's why we moved to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Because it was a very family friendly, homeschool friendly community. We have everything out here. We have the Institute of Christ the King. That's where we attend here in Kansas City. The SSPX is here. What else? The Fraternity of St. Peter.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why our parents decided to move to Kansas City, because we just had pretty much everything here.
Yeah. And just thought it was a really good place to plant roots for a family. So
we have 11 siblings. There are 12 of us. And we all live in the same neighborhood. So it's very centered around family. Our mom teaches the grandkids preschool now. It's really good here.
What was homeschooling like? So what sort of curriculum, what sort of things did you cover? Just for people that don't have that much exposure to homeschooling, maybe we can bust some of the myths.
Yeah, we did. Our brothers went to boarding school and they did Seton
with the TFP.
With the TFP, not sure if you're familiar with that group. Tradition, Family, and Action. And they have this small boarding school in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, and they do Seton curriculum, and it's all centered around chivalry. I think that's what right?
Mm-hmm.
So they teach the boys just how to be a man in a modern world, and just I don't know how else to expound on that.
It's I think that would be an interesting other topic, but yeah, it really is Tradition, Family, and Property. They actually started out as an organization, but as for homeschooling, all of us girls, for high school, we all had Our Lady of Victory, which is which is a school based in Idaho, and we had. It's not like, oh, you did half a day of school, or oh, you do school in your pajamas. I'll tell you right now, I did not do school a single day in my pajamas. But basically for the curriculum there is what happens is, because we didn't live in Idaho, we had all of our schoolwork sent to us. So you're allowed to get, purchase your curriculum. And then when you do your homework, some of it's graded by your parent. And then to make sure that, you're not cheating or whatever, or, keeping on top of it and being able to give you an actual diploma, we actually sent in a lot of our schoolwork to get graded by tutors at the school. And then, so it's like we have a diploma. If you ask the school, did we graduated with them. So it's not like
just random.
We just did the books and then didn't have a diploma or whatnot. So we do have diplomas, which I think a lot of people don't know that actually as a homeschooler that you can get a diploma. Okay. So that's what we did. And that's also a great curriculum that I loved, that I know we all learned a lot from. They have, it's an incredible curriculum. So that's how that worked for us for high school.
So a long story short, you did not feel like your schooling was in any way stunted because you chose to homeschool?
Not at all. If anything, is quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. So I feel, and again, like I said, most people wouldn't know they were homeschooled because we're not what they think the typical homeschooler looks like, which is, again, school in your pajamas, and you don't know how to speak. You have no social skills, all those things, which I think is funny is that now we're starting to see that come out of public schools. I think
everyone's on their phones, looking down.
They don't have to have conversations anymore, which that was, again, huge to our parents, was that we did have good social skills and that we were able to hold up a conversation and
look the person in the eye. You know?
Exactly. Take your hands out of your pockets, look them in the eye, and greet them appropriately. So I did not. If anything, I feel like it was anything but stunted, and I think it was quite the opposite. So
and I'm the people I nanny, the children I nanny for, they took their kids out of school because of the whole coronavirus and everything. And so I'm homeschooling them with the Seton program. And it's, it's just like, I don't really know what it is, but it's just like the children who come out of school, even private school, you just got to be like, the child can't even look me in the eye and answer a straight question, like, did you do this? They can't answer yes or no looking me in the eye. And I'm like, come on, you got to work on this. So
yeah, it's interesting, and it shows that there are far deeper problems at a societal issue than just education, and education is a far broader issue than just trying to transmit some facts in a classroom. If the kid can't look you in the eye and hold a conversation, something's missing. So it's interesting you say that. And I also thought it was quite ironic that everybody thinks that you would have been the ones wearing pajamas while you're going to school, whereas
we literally had uniforms. Okay.
Uniforms. In this day and age, in COVID, everybody's wearing PJs when they go and they're going to work. So I thought I'd just throw that one out there. What was there any truth, or how would I put this? Because I do understand there was a stigma, or I have heard of the stigma that attaches to homeschooling in terms of, you're homeschooled, antisocial la-di-da. But that being said, you two seem very lovely, very sociable, easy to talk to. Is there any truth to that stigma? Have you seen it?
I think, I will be honest, I do think that there are people who, I think just like anything, there's a scale, and there's far one way and there's far another way, and then there's a middle, and there's a happy ground in the middle. And I do think a lot of people, I will admit that I do think that there are a lot of homeschool families who don't realize, who take their children out of school for the wrong reasons, or don't realize what the important reasons are to homeschool. And I think that is, we just want to protect them from everything. And we just want to put them in a box and
not tell them anything that's going on in the world.
And just, earmuffs, and they don't know anything about anything that's happening, that's not good, which I think that there's that scale of knowing how much a child should know and knowing what shouldn't be known to them at a certain age or whatnot. I think that there's a time and a place when they will be introduced to things in the world that, yes, it is scandalous to them, but you have to know that, okay, the world's an evil place. This isn't our home. There is going to be evil out there, and you have to be ready for that. And I think that, again, the families who do want to keep them in this box of, I don't ever want them to know about anything that's happening. Well, what's going to happen? Are they going to stay in your basement for their whole life? Yeah. Are they going to stay in your home? Are you going, when you're older, what are you going to do when a priest says something wrong? Like, families that we know are like, no one says anything wrong. And our dad made it very clear, there are bad priests. There are bad people everywhere. And just because someone's nice doesn't mean they're good. Yeah. And our dad made it very clear, like, this priest said this thing that was bad, or something that was wrong. And I think that's very important too for people to know that people in the hierarchy of the church, they can say wrong things, and we're all human.
And we all are.
So I think that's another thing.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that, because two things I've picked up and I'd like to talk about. So firstly, the four basic hallmarks of Catholicism being: one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. You've got to be apostolic to be Catholic. That's non-negotiable, and you cannot be apostolic from your basement. I'd qualify that with a footnote saying anything's possible in the virtual age. Ha, ha, ha. But really, you've got to go out there and you've got to engage in this dialogue to be apostolic, to be Catholic. You've got to balance that against, you've got to be educated in your faith enough to be able to effectively do that. And that apostolic ambit is really depending on your vocation in life. So some people go out there and are full-on apostolic at a societal level, apologists. Some people, it's limited to the ambit of their family, just making sure that their family is able to stay the course and preserve their Catholic faith. But would you agree that one of the problems central to that sort of basement mentality, because I think we've both probably observed it, is you're not only setting somebody potentially up to fail at a social level, because when they do get out there, they go, what's going on? But also you're negating one of the fundamental issues of Catholicism, which is you've got to be apostolic. That's not a negotiable issue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think to add to that, like you said, when they get out there, if you don't know how to have a conversation, if you don't know that there is evil that is out there, how are you going to be able to have that conversation with somebody? And I think a lot of the time too, people who are super sheltered, I think that there's also the other problem of when you are super sheltered and you haven't been given any leash at all as a, from your parents, that you go to the other extreme. It's okay. Now that I'm out of the house, I can do whatever. I am just going to go, I'm going to go change all of what I grew up with because I didn't like the way they did that, or they never told me why I had to do X, Y, and Z. They never taught me why being Catholic was important, why keeping tradition was important. And I see that as a huge problem.
I think that's another thing with modesty for women. The girls were just told to wear a skirt this length and cover this amount of your arms, and they were never told why. And our parents really made it
abundantly clear.
It's like, just, this is why we do what we do, and it wasn't just like, you just have to do this because this priest told me to do this.
Or because we said so.
Exactly.
It was never because we said so. We were always explained, we do this because this is the church teaching. Exactly. You're dressing modestly to protect your own dignity. You are a temple of the Holy Ghost, and you're there to dress modestly for the dignity of others and to keep others' purity, because you're prone to, you're guilty for their sin if you're going out dressing like you have with no modesty standards, Mm-hmm. And so we were always explained why we did things, which I think is absolutely crucial to a good rearing of your family. So
that's huge. And maybe just to close off the conversation on education, you could almost say from a fundamental age, the most important question anybody can ask from an educational perspective is why? And the education is only useful insofar as it actually explains to you that why. And just some anecdotal, just some experience, because I went through and I hated maths. I battled through. But not my strong point. And I did some pretty tough mathematics subjects in high school. But when I got through, the only way I was able to get through was sitting there, putting the hard time in with the teacher or the lecturer, and having them explain to me that why. Even from a mathematical perspective, if I didn't understand the why, the what makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. Whereas it seems with the problem with education today on both fronts, on any front, is even if it's hardwired ideological education, they're just telling you the what, and they're refusing to engage in the discussion of the why. Because if you talk about gender identity or some of these crazy ideas, if you engage in a discussion of the why, everybody's going to be scratching their head going, hang on, this makes absolutely no sense when it stands up against all the other things that we understand in terms of scientific biology or all these other things. But bringing it all to a bit of a head, the most important educational center you can have in your life is your family. That's where it all happens. So let's start talking about what it is you do in the wonderful Facebook group and Instagram group. But before we get into that, I want to ask you a question. So, shock horror, I'm an American citizen. There's a pretty important date coming up. I think it's on November 3rd.
Sounds familiar.
Who should I vote for?
Oh, Trump. Come on.
That's a hard one. Woo! Gotta think about
okay, and I want you to humor me.
I'm on the fence about that one.
I want you to humor me just for a second. Why should I vote for Trump?
Oh gosh,
we're not like super political people, so
well, we can go on a couple things. I think for anybody who is on the fence, I think the easiest thing is even if you didn't love Trump, which he has a ton of great policies, which again, immigration, taxes, and the fact that he's a pro-life president, the first president to attend the March for Life.
And then Trump,
that's incredible.
Pence's debate the other night too, saying that he's pro-life,
unapologetically pro-life. Yeah. But again, for anybody who needs to for anybody who's on the fence and says, "Oh, well, I just don't like Trump and I don't really like Biden," but people don't like Trump mostly for his personality, And the easiest thing is to say, you cannot be a Catholic and vote for somebody who is pro-abortion. And Biden is pro-abortion at any point,
up to delivery and after.
So I think that's the easiest distinguishing point right there. So,
yeah, that's interesting. That there was a reason I actually brought that up. Firstly, that the point you just made, I think that's so true. If you're watching it from afar, it can be quite polarizing if you don't get down at a nitty-gritty level and look at the policies, because you look at Trump and you go, he's got quite a bombastic, unpredictable personality, and you look at Biden and you go, oh my gosh, he's lost his mind. And so you go, well, how do I work through this? You engage with the policies. But the point you just made, I think, is really important for people to understand. As a matter of fact, you cannot vote for the Democrats. That would be my understanding. If you call yourself a Catholic, and it's the irony that Biden is still appealing to his Irish Catholic heritage.
In the same breath, he said he supported Roe v. Wade and criticized Amy Coney Barrett, who's obviously pro-life, in the same breath as saying, I'm an Irish Catholic, and talking about what a rough time he's had as an Irish Catholic. And I'm like, oh, that's funny that you say that, considering that you're the type of Catholic who was denied Holy Communion. So
yeah. And he was the vice president for Obama, and we all know how good kind Obama was towards the Catholic Church. And the point you just made, Biden was refused Holy Communion. I mean, that's huge.
Blatant right there.
It's not something upon which reasonable Catholic minds can differ. This issue, it's stark. The line is drawn in the sand, and Catholics cannot vote for Biden if you call yourself a respectable Catholic. And I think I personally would argue that Catholics should vote for Trump. There's enough commentary out there, and it's been argued for people much smarter than myself and more informed on the issue. But
likewise,
yeah. But the reason I raised that is because you take somebody like the wonderful Kamala Harris and these people that they would call themselves, the front line of feminists, this female empowerment, and it really seems, recapturing the world for women, feminists, aggressive, man-hating. And I'm not going to lie, it's really frightening being a white, straight male, especially in the Western world, because it's almost like your target number one, even though we're not outrightly persecuted. The psychological warfare that is waged against you by virtue of you being born a certain way is quite horrific. But let's not talk about it. I want to talk about the issue of feminism, and I want to start by painting a bit of a picture. So it seems the gripe of a lot of young women today, I'd call them, they'd identify, I think, as feminists, is women are discriminated against as a sex in terms of gender pay, job opportunity when put up against men. That's one issue. And then you've had what they called the sexual revolution, whereas it was, female empowerment. We're proud of who we are. It really turned into this I hate using the term, but it was sexual extravagance, where it was flaunting everything and really full stop. I won't take it any further than that. Now we're in a situation where I walk to work through my local CBD, Brisbane, and I walk past how would I call them? Dancing halls, gentlemen's clubs. And I sit there and I look and I go, so on one hand, we've got people complaining that women are discriminated against, domestic violence, sexual assault. Men are the worst things in the world because we all know what they want. And then on the other hand, we live in a society where you're allowed to have a shop like that profiteer. I'm making some pretty extreme comparisons here, but it's for no purpose other than sort of showing this blatant juxtaposition or contradiction within society where you go, how the heck did we get here? So to your mind, to lovely, reasonable, talkative, chatty, extroverted young ladies, what does it mean to be a woman, and what should it mean to be a woman in 21st century?
Do you want to say that or don't?
I have to think about
I'm all fired up about it. I'm just so many thoughts coming to my mind.
Go.
So, we, since the beginning of time, God created man and a woman, created a man first, and he knew that Adam needed a helpmate, and he created a woman. That is, I would say, that is a perfect, just first example. Obviously, I mean, the reason why God created a woman in the first place was as a helpmate to the man. I have to comment before I forget, because I am expecting and I forget things really quickly. But to your points about, so part of being a helpmate, I'd say you can even be a helpmate in a sense of not being married, as just living purely. That in and of itself is helping a man gain salvation by him being able to keep his purity. And like you said, we're in a world today where women say, I am treated so unfairly because XYZ, but I am going to go walk out in, I hardly can let the words come out of my mouth, but in hardly anything, barely covering yourself. And I'm going to expect that a man is going to not look at me. And I'm going to expect that I'm going to be treated like a woman. I can tell you a fact right now, you will not be treated like a woman. You will not be treated like a lady. You are degrading yourself for the intention of having eyes on you. Women say, oh, I don't want, how dare a man look at me this way? How dare they do X, Y, and Z? Like you said, you're the most, pointed at person now. It's really the most attacked person to be is a straight white male. That is the most attacked person. And so I just think that is women are doing a disservice to themselves when they are objectifying themselves, and in dressing the way they do now. And so I think that is a huge part. They're taking away from the greatness of what God intended them to be. And they are taking away from who they're meant to be, which is somebody who is, beautiful, who is there to, again, as a helpmate, and to, protect when you protect yourself, you're also protecting so many other elements. Exactly. And so I think that, women are making this battle on themselves. And I think that, back to your point a little bit more, sorry, a little sidetracked.
Oh, that's all right.
But to be a woman, I think that it is so important to be feminine, to understand what femininity is and how much that provides to a happy home, a happier world. When women will be women and ladies and feminine, they are going to contribute so much more than they will in a workforce trying to compete against a man. Women, generally speaking, weren't made to just be in a workforce with other men. It wasn't made to be this competition. It was made to be a harmony. Mm-hmm. And when women do what they were intended to do and men do what they were intended to do, together, it's a beautiful harmony. But we are interrupting that by women saying, I don't feel empowered enough. I don't feel satisfied enough. by doing what I'm intended to do, which if it's their vocation to be married and to live happily as a mother and to provide a happy home. And when women just realize that when they try and fulfill themselves, even in the right senses of, providing a happy home, they're going to be so much happier there. Because when I took this comparison of saying it's like a really good baseball player who says, I don't want to play baseball. I'm going to go play football. But he's a horrible football player, right? And everyone's like, why are you playing football? You are an amazing baseball player. Mm-hmm. Well, I like the football players better, and I want to be like the football players. Everyone's confused, right? Why would you would make it so much better in playing as a baseball player? And I think that's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Women are trying to be good at something that we weren't necessarily intended to do for our entirety. Women are trying to compete with somebody who you can't compete with it. They're taking away from themselves when they're trying to be somebody else. It applies to everybody in a personality wise. When you try to act like somebody else, no one's really going to like you. When you are yourself in the best way that God intended you to be, you're going to have a lot more people that like you, and you're going to be much happier as a person because you're not putting on this fake show of, I want to be this person, and, if we are who God intended us to be, that is the happiest we'll be. And women need to realize that we need to be who God intended us to be and to do the duties that women were intended to have. And we will be so much happier. And we can't want to be the football player. We should be the baseball player that we're good at playing baseball, So sorry, I went on a little rampage.
No, that was interesting. So do you believe that it's a matter of, how do I put this? A lot of people would see it this way, that they look at women who embrace and try and live traditionalist notions of womanhood. And some people see that as women seeing themselves as, the base servants of their male counterpart. Or I would prefer to look at it and see women see themselves as just fulfilling a different societal role to that of man. As you just said, it's horses for courses, which would suggest the idea that men and women were actually made and designed to serve two different roles.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you'd agree?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Women are going to be happier when they're intended to do, like you said, intended to do what when they do what they're intended to do, they'll be much happier and fulfilling that than, that's the perspective that people should be looking at it as.
Okay.
And not, and again, like you said, I think that men who have a wife who does stay at home, who does take care of the house, they are so much happier than the men who have a working wife, who leave the children are at daycare and they don't see each other in the morning, and she didn't make breakfast, and they get back home and they're both tired, and the wife has nothing left to give as a wife
or a mother.
Or a mother, yes.
Because I think what happened, I want to ask you a question on that point, because to my mind what happened was society did such a good job at some point in convincing women at large that motherhood is not a vocation worthy of any dignity. So my first question is going to be to both of you, what happened? That may be difficult to answer, but it seems like across the board, I've still got a lot of female friends who would disagree with me on the ideas underpinning this sort of conversation. But they're instinctively maternal. They see a kid and they go, oh, it's a beautiful baby. And, when I have my kid, and it seems like all women, unless you are just a complete harsh person, all women are sort of innately that way. So there's still that sort of radical attachment, maternal instinct, but something happened along the way where that they won't take the next step and go, motherhood is something worth perceiving. It's degrading, and for me to have any intrinsic worth myself, I've got to go and compete with everybody else and forge a career for myself. So as a couple of self-confident young women, do you have any ideas on why that is?
I think we might agree that in society, everything's been flipped. Everything has been flipped. And I think that, you know, I think as a natural, I mean, from original sin, everything, I mean, nothing went, there was no time where something went perfectly. And I think that in today's society, everything's just flipping. And I don't think it was a matter of when. I think that it was a gradual.
Yeah, I feel like it would be a slow
transition.
I mean, like, I'm not very good with history, but like the women's suffragette, you know, that started a big thing, like women voting, and like I'm voting, you know, so like it's natural now, but like I don't know, it was just like the women. I don't know.
I don't even think it was necessarily the fact that they were voting. It was the fact that they want to do something the man was doing.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a problem with having a woman vote. Like, again, like today we wouldn't say, oh, we're women suffragettes, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that it was wanting what the man had, wanting a say in where the man.
Well, it's kind of like the grass is always greener on the other side, you know, and then you get there and you're like, meh.
and the funny thing is, you know, you say, oh, in society, you know, or people say in society that, you know, oh, men are so horrible to women, blah, blah, blah. Like, men were the ones who wanted women to vote. I think it's a natural, again, since the beginning of time, since Adam and Eve, the mistakes that happened was the man was lazy because he didn't want to tell her, no, don't do that. Mm-hmm. And she was the one who said, you know, oh, come on, let's do it. I want to make, and she was the one who made the decision, and annoying, and she made the decision, you know? And so my husband brought that up to me. He brings that up to me. He's like, sweetheart, ever since the beginning of time, it's, you know, a man's inclination from original sin to be lazy, and the woman to want to lead. And that's original sin, you know? And so I think that men didn't mind. They were like, yes, great. That's something that I don't have to do. You know, they were the ones who gave them the rights. They didn't have to fight for it, you know? But men gave that to them. And so I just thought that was an interesting point that, you know, when femininity died, chivalry started to die, and leadership and the man.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it would be any accident that those, as you've just pointed out, those things are inextricably linked, because it's actually, it sort of sounds like, based on what you're saying, and I kind of agree with it, that it's the ultimate condemnation of us being me, men. I want to be too hard on ourselves, but I think if you think about it, really, when I walk down that hall, when I walk through the city and I look at those shops, and you know, you see the people working in them, and you go, oh, how could you do that? Really, to be completely fair, I don't know why they do that. And they could have tragic stories that I don't know anything, and that they just feel like that's what they've got to do. The person to blame are the people who allow that establishment, or who first allowed those establishments to be seen as a public need. And that the same thing across the board. You know, the women feeling the need to compete with men. To my mind, it was that the people who gave, kindled the fires of that idea are the people who were to blame, as opposed to the women feeling like.
And it's not easy for a woman. Like, I have very strong personality sisters, you know, I don't know how you say that, but, you know, and some of them have married, you know, men who are like introverted and stuff. And my extroverted sisters are like, come on. And then as their marriage, you know, goes on, they understand that they have to like just be patient and wait. And
you're talking about me, aren't you?
but also it's the ultimate call to arms again for men, because I think I don't want to say a lot of men, but some men have this chauvinistic, entitled idea, which is just not the way it's meant to be. You know, I'm a man, and the woman is here to serve me, and I just, you know, get out. Where you know, you're responsible for creating this mess, because you gave these possibly lovely young ladies the idea that they had to go elsewhere to create their worth, and the rest is history. Whereas let's change the angle of this conversation a little bit. So for an example, my mother, absolute hero, mother of 7, best mother I possibly could have asked for. She was very successful in her own right before she met my dad, and got married, and 7 kids later, she was a very successful swimmer for the United States.
Oh, wow.
And she was, very good. Very, very good. So you can even look her up, but I won't tell you what her name is.
He's not.
Can't do that. And she was a very successful coach, and she made the choice to leave that all behind to marry my dad and become a mother. And when you live in the society that we live in today, and there's the female empowerment seems to be limited to equal pay and job opportunity. It's so narrow that seems to be it. Whereas I go, Mum, do you actually feel what's harder for you? What's worth more for you? What's your greatest achievement? And hands down, she goes, having you 7 kids. And you go, oh, come on, knock it off. Well, what really is it? And she goes, no, it's having you 7 kids. Because of how difficult having 7 kids is. She says, compared to all the hard work put in as a swimmer and as a coach compared to kids, she says, you kids are way harder. And the success I get from, when you kids succeed is ultimately, 1,000 times better than the success I got as a swimmer. Now, I can only take her at her face value on that. Do you agree, just from your perspective, motherhood, do you feel like there is a wonderful dignity to being a mother?
Yeah, so since being married, I knew that it was my vocation, and I always felt that calling. I was going to, before I met my husband, not before I met my husband, it was before I knew I was going to marry him. I did want to go to college, and I wanted to get my degree in nursing. But once I realized, he decided to take a fast track and get his bachelor's in less than a year and a half so that we could get married as soon as he graduated. I had to and I don't want to say had to, it was a very easy decision for me, but I had to make the decision, okay, I cannot get through college fast enough for to be, done before he is, so that I can actually, become a nurse and, work for that. And I had to give up that choice of college because I valued my vocation so much more. And I knew that was more important. Our dad always made the point. He said, your goal is to get to find your vocation and fulfill your vocation. It's not about this, in between, I want to do this before I get married. Yes, to have goals before you, get married, but essentially to not let something stop you from fulfilling your vocation. And a college degree would have stopped me several years. It held me back several years before getting married. And so I gave up that choice to get my college degree because I knew that my vocation was more important. And I knew that I was going to be more fulfilled as a mother, especially seeing my mom with, all of us. And now this is grandbaby 29. And so how much happier.
Just grandbaby 29.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was just making sure you didn't say you're 29. I was like,
no, not there yet.
Yeah.
Give me a little while. And I already knew that I was going to feel fulfilled. But after being married and after now carrying a life inside of me, I cannot even express how much more fulfilling that is. Knowing, it was not a hard decision for me to give up a college degree because I knew it was more important. And I knew that I was going to be more fulfilled in that. And there's nothing like carrying a life inside you. And I can't even wait to meet him. I haven't even had him yet.
This is her first baby.
Yes, this is my first. I just got married in December. So,
Yeah, just think about that point. Is your responsibility is to form and mold a human life.
Mm-hmm. Talk about female privilege, okay? Like, I'm like, I know everyone's talking about male privilege, but there's female privilege in being able to carry a life inside of you.
That's huge. And being, of the two, who's more influential in terms of the formation of that child once it's actually born. I know mothers and fathers serve different roles, but that maternal nature has just an overwhelming sway on the child, the love, the nurturing, the personality, the traits. That's huge. You could just sit there in silence and think, throw that thought around in your head forever and go, it's almost infinite. That's enormous.
Yeah, it really is. And again, every day I'm just like, I am just every day, just wow. My brain really is just so full when I think about it I just sit there and think about it for a couple of seconds and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like I have this blessing. I get, and I know that this is what will most fulfill me because again, this is my vocation and you will be happiest fulfilling your vocation and doing what God intended you to do. And so for my sister, it was, becoming a nun and she feels completely fulfilled because it's her vocation. You know what I mean? But as a mother, it's such an impeccable feeling. And I've never had such a strong, attachment to somebody I haven't even met. And, that's just such a strong bond already. And it is such a miracle and it's very fulfilling already. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think another thing is our mom had 12 kids, and where was I going with this thought? If she would have had the 2 kids and gone off and done her, career and everything, she's like, what, 54 now?
Yes.
Something like that. And she could have had those 2 kids and maybe a couple grandkids, but fulfilling her vocation, she wouldn't have
the
joy of, I don't know if we bring much joy, but our dad, he passed away a few years ago. And I think if she would have gone and done her career and everything and had just the 2 kids, she would feel lonely now, but she doesn't because, there's like 50 something people surrounding her, and she wouldn't feel fulfilled with that career and making however much, and so I think that's a big thing too,
and she's probably done a pretty good job of forming those kids. And that's a point we can touch on briefly because the ultimate bad example and point that people bring up is they go, oh, gee, look at that family of 10 kids that's just absolutely savage. And they turn up and everybody goes, oh, no. I'm not even suggesting I know anybody like this. But the idea is definitely entrenched in people's minds somewhere. So would that once again draw back to the most important thing anywhere in the world really is the family unit.
Yeah, again, definitely. It does come back to that. Yep. It always comes back to
comes back to the family. Yep. Always. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, being a family of 12, it's funny because, you get weird looks, all you marching in somewhere or, everyone lined up, and especially when we're all younger, all of us were together, just marching in somewhere, and you get the weird looks, but at the end of the day.
And then are you all from one mom and one dad? And we're like,
yeah. Is that a question? Like, does that have to be a question? But that was my favorite. I think that was one of our dad's favorite thing to say was, yep, I've got 12 kids and I've only had one wife, and everyone's jaw just like, whoa, just wow. And, you honestly get a sense of pride. I never was embarrassed from being a big part of it. I mean, there are the embarrassing moments, don't get me wrong, but walking in, you kind of felt like there are a lot of us and we know it. And we like it this way.
Yeah. and I mean that's the flip side, because it really is fun. Where I went to school.
I don't know what people would do with one or 2 kids. You're like, I'm so bored.
And that's it. When I went through high school, a lot of my best friends, a lot of my close friends, and people I just met by the by, 4 kids was enormous. 2, 3, 4, maybe rarely 5. I'm one of 7, so I'm certainly not in your league. But 7, when people heard 7, it was, oh my God, your poor parents. How did that happen? What happened? Why did it happen? But, you know, I'd sort of just say, hey, really, I've got 7 best friends. My personality is sort of spread across 7 different people who can handle it. I don't hate any of them. We're a family, and a lot of them, a lot of the people sort of went, oh, you know, I really wish I didn't just have my annoying sister or my brother that hates me, or to be fair, a lot of them were happy, but it really it sparked conversation, and a lot of people were interested in it, and I think it gave a lot that I was very positive about my family experience, as are you, which I genuinely was. You know, having the 6 siblings that I have, the most heart-wrenching moment was when we sort of had to go all our separate ways, and there's 3 working in KC, there's 1 working down in Alabama, and I'm still here with the 2 youngest. But we are still so close, and we always were so close, and that's the best thing you can do, I think, as an advocate for families, is actually demonstrate that it is and is meant to be a positive experience and a beneficial one for not just the individuals involved, but society at large.
And I think it's very sad when, you know, there's 3 children and like, oh yeah, the 3rd one was a mistake. And you wonder why there's so much depression in the younger generation. And it's probably because like, oh yeah, honey, you were a mistake, blah, blah, blah. We didn't really need you, but oh, here you are, you know? And that's really, really, really sad to see. Heartbreaking.
You know, I think, again, to your point, as being a part of a big family and being best friends with all your siblings, right? Our mom always told us, you know, when we were little and we were having those tough moments and you're ready to like fist fight someone, right? You know? And she's like, now you just hold on. Because when you grow up, they're going to be your best friends and they're going to be your closest friends. And in some cases, maybe even your only friend. Okay. So you better not be mean to them because you will regret it. And we're like, yeah, right. When I get out of here, I am going to have tons of friends. And I am just, are you kidding me? I won't even have to look at you again if I didn't want to, you know? And here we are, all in the same neighborhood. We are all each other's best friends.
I could probably say I have 5 other friends besides my family. Like, seriously, we just talk to each other every day. It's just amazing. So
and it is so fun, and it's funny because my husband, he's only one of 2, and he just always like, oh, our childhood was so boring. I couldn't stand my childhood, blah blah. And I'm like, that's so sad. I was like, what do you mean? Like, why didn't you have fun, and why didn't you have a good time? And then he was like, I don't know. And then it crossed my mind. I was like, well, you know, at one time or another, yes, you don't get along with a sibling. Mm-hmm. And when you only have one sibling, if you don't get along with them, what are you going to do? Like, you know, and there's no bond like a sibling. You know what I mean? If you can be best friends with your siblings, that's the best thing. And he and his brother are now best friends. But before, when they were little, it was just like, I just, you know, don't want to do with you right now. But when you have 12, you're bound to be best friends with one of them, right? So, but I thought that was kind of funny. I'm just like, I loved my childhood, and I can easily say that being from a big family is what made me.
Or when people say, oh, do you have enough love to go around to everyone? I think that's the most stupid question. I'm just like, there's so many people to love and love you back.
Yeah.
That has always gotten me like, yeah, totally.
And like, you clearly didn't grow up in a big family, or else you'd know how immensely loved you were by your siblings and your parents. And so, yeah, I can easily say that being part of a big family is what added to our daily excitement, and why I had such a happy childhood, and why we are so happy all together. So
huge. Great. Awesome conversation. Let's close it off by talking about, we haven't had an opportunity to discuss it yet, your Facebook page and your Instagram page. So what is it called again?
Captivating Womanhood.
Captivating Womanhood. And give me a summary on what is the purpose behind Captivating Womanhood.
So it's kind of just a empowerment to encouragement to Catholic women. We don't have a lot of that on social media. And so Mary Margaret and I wanted to start something that women could come to for advice or just even encouragement, for modesty, womanhood, traditional values.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of just have, it started out as just a modesty page and kind of just showing women that you can still be fashionable, but also still very modest.
You don't have to break any modesty rules to dress beautifully or fashionably.
Exactly. And yeah, so
okay. And I think it just turned into, I think it kind of developed into more than what we thought it would. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's a place where we've been able to share, some things that we've gone through or things that have helped us get through things. And just help sharing traditional values and traditional women roles, because I feel like even that can be missing, in a good Catholic family, is the role of a wife, or just being a teenager or whatever stage you're in, that everyone needs that support, and everyone needs that help, and I feel like that can still be missing. And I think it's a hard thing to put it to narrow to, what am I trying to say? It's a hard thing to express and share, I think, because there are so many opposing views. Yep. Even within traditional families, mm-hmm. there's still a lot of opposing views. And I think there are some things that would help, being cleared up, or, helping share those types of things. And so,
so we'll write posts. We try and do one post a week, just explaining something. What did we do last time?
It was dating versus courtship.
Yeah. So, dating versus courtship. So we wrote this article, about that. So you can go check that out. Also, we just do quotes of G.K. Chesterton, or we have chivalry quotes on there too. And women need to let men
be men,
be chivalrous. Let a guy open the door for you. That doesn't mean you're less than him, So that's kind of what we have so far. We've only been doing it for about 3 months.
And so tell him to pull his socks up when he needs to pull them. That's terrific. So, sorry, I think you may have just answered it, but I missed it. How old is the page?
3 months. We started in July.
Wow. Okay. So, I've had a look, and it seems to be gathering a lot of traction. And I noticed USA/France.
Yep. So we have 4 ladies on the group. It's both of us, and then a third lady who also writes posts, and then a fourth lady who translates everything we write into French. So she
live in France.
Yeah, she does live in France. She saw our page, and we are Instagram friends, and she's just we really need this in France. Can I just steal your stuff? And I'm let's just make a page together here. So yeah.
She translates that because she thought that was something that was really missing in
European
French culture.
Yeah.
And she said, that's really fading. I think maybe even more than in the States.
Yes. Modesty, I think, is definitely stronger here with traditional Catholics than in Europe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I love your point about a support network, because an old adage I learned, I can't remember where it was, but you're the sum total of the 5 people that you spend most time with. And for reasons we've discussed, it's going to be a rarity today that's actually your family, because 5 people in a family is actually a pretty large family. So having a network of friends and confidants who are like-minded, able to discuss these things, it's invaluable, indispensable, and very, very important. So well done to you. Great initiative, and I wish it all the very, very best. And I will definitely give it a shout out and promote it from my base. So tell you what, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a huge conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you for having us.
Absolute pleasure. Look forward to potentially many more in the future.
Yes, definitely.
Sounds good. We'll be here.
Thanks.
You know where to find us.
we know. And Kansas City, Missouri, you gave that away. I may actually find you. So, thanks again. Really appreciate you taking the time to join me.
Thanks, Tom. All right. God bless.